Thank you for inviting me to speak at this really inspiring caucus. For the last 3 years, I've campaigned on the issue of domestic violence through research and policy and youth-led projects. So I hope I can contribute something. I found that in a world where feminism has become cool, and I love that, domestic violence is something untouchable. The problem is that domestic violence, whether perpetrated towards women or men in heterosexual relationships or homosexual relationships, creates inequality behind closed doors. You cannot achieve true gender equality when men and women around the world are being abused when they should be safe. But it does appear to be an issue that even the most avant-garde of feminists don't really want to address. Perhaps this is because of the weak woman stereotypes that domestic violence is so often associated with. But I think it's really because domestic violence is so large and so complex that it doesn't fit into a fashionable, easy-to-digest rhetoric. And so it's left unknown and untouched. Generally, across society, it does appear to be an issue that people don't want to talk about. This allows abuse to be easily excused away. Oh, I just banged my head on the door as I left the home this morning. No questions are asked by your colleagues or friends. And it's unlikely, even if someone thought it was a bit odd, that they would really probe. Even if someone does disclose, the response from family or friends will often be one of disbelief. And this further encourages the person to keep quiet, especially amongst men, where rates of speaking up are even lower than for women. It's hard to talk about domestic violence, and it's even more challenging to seek help, which is why so many cases escalate and the control increases, and there's just an immense human and emotional cost that results from something that really could have been intervened with at a much earlier stage, and the prevention. We've heard today on how businesses are engaging in gender equality and how much can be achieved through entrepreneurship. I would like to make the case that businesses should also be thinking about domestic violence, and because, quite simply, their employees will be experiencing it. Well, not all of them. Some of their employees will be experiencing it. To tell your employer you're experiencing domestic violence might seem like the end of your career. But on the other hand, people who don't disclose to their employers will often hurt their careers with an unexplained drop in productivity, energy, and confidence. Sustained over a long period of time often means people lose their jobs or miss promotions. I know a very successful businesswoman who ran hedge funds in the City of London, whose husband started choosing what she would wear and laid it out for her each evening. The control escalated, and soon he was deciding who she was allowed to meet with. Before long, without her knowledge, he began to log into her email accounts, cancel meetings, and then told her confused clients, colleagues, and friends that she was suffering from a mental health breakdown. Domestic violence really can affect anyone, even those who appear to have it all. In addition to these individual experiences, it's also important to look at the big picture. In the UK alone, the lost economic output caused by domestic violence amounts to £2.7 billion, about half of which, £1.3 billion, is absorbed by employers. If you would like to know more about the economic case and how employers can reduce this loss, please do get in touch with me, as I have research I can send you. I will finish with this. It could be your brother or sister, your daughter or son. I celebrate the achievements of the campaign for gender equality, and I feel personally and professionally inspired to do as much as I can with the freedoms that have been so hard fought for by those who came before us. But I also see the pieces of the puzzle that are missing. Domestic violence includes financial, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. It addresses FGM and other cultural practices that seek to make women second-class citizens, but also dehumanize and demonize men. Silence or brushing it under the carpet is no longer an option. We need proactive approaches that focus on prevention and early-stage intervention, thus reducing the cases that reach crisis point. We need a concerted effort from individuals, communities, businesses, policymakers and governments to educate themselves and engage with the campaign to eliminate domestic violence. Gender equality is a winner for everyone, and I hope that I have persuaded you that the work to eliminate domestic violence is a crucial part of achieving equality for all. Thank you.
Okay. If you handed it to Caroline, I would like to know, Caroline, your insights on...
Well, I've talked too much already.
Okay.
But I just want to touch something. Am I allowed to do this? Just to hear, I want to say something to Jemima. It was great to hear you speak about domestic violence in gender equality terms. And I think that, to me, is this conversation that we're having. How both genders, or we have more than two now, that everybody needs to be involved in this conversation. And I just think the work you're doing is brilliant. So congratulations. So you were asking me, Carlotta, when we came, because how I felt about being an activist who was a woman. And so I come to this space, and I really need to own this, because I was spending so much time hiding a part of my identity, which was my site. All of my effort went into that, and that was the fight around identity. And my identity as a woman, very strangely, did not become something I dealt with separate to myself. I had the luxury of that, and I need to say that, aside from because of the way I was dealing with my own sight loss, is when I actually got separated from my first marriage. And a topic that I have been amazed by, I'm now separated from my marriage 10 years. I fell in love and got married again only a little while ago, which is great. But through that marriage breakup, I didn't get to have children. And I really wanted to have children. And one of the things that has shocked me, and you know, I think you've heard me speaking about the issue of labels and how much I hate that singular label, is that I got a new label, that I was childless. And I remember it be part of many interviews that I've done, it was the issue of me not having children. And sometimes having to try and defend that, and let alone the fact that it's each of our choice, and who would know the background to that. But it is one of those things I just had no expectation on, and it really helped. I mean, it really opened my mind to so much that I had not been aware of. And I think the issue of motherhood and parenthood, let's just call it parenthood, but I think there's an issue that I don't see discussed enough, because when we talk about gender in work, with women and work, we imagine that a woman working is the woman in the same circumstance, and they're not. And it's just something that I would like to open to the floor, because I have been shocked really about the issue of childless women and a lot of the judgments that we may face, which I've been quite surprised at. So I think that's just something I would love to hear anybody else's opinion on offline. But I think that issue of being a childless mother, but parenting is also very interesting in this conversation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I will go and do some specific questions and then hand it to the public. I would like to start with Lucia, and you were talking about the ways you were fostering women leadership. You were saying that at Telefónica, at least one woman has to be interviewed for the positions offered, and I would like to know the point of view of Telefónica on quotas. What do you think about that? Is it effective?
Okay. Yeah, quotas is like a very controversial thing. Most men and women are not very comfortable about that. And the thing is that at Telefónica it's not something we are thinking about to happen soon, but it's real that a lot of companies are thinking about it as the changes are so slow. So a lot of governments and some companies are doing it, especially in the north of Europe, but it's not something we are thinking about now because I think the company is not prepared for that. I think it's super important to have everyone aware why in a future maybe it would be necessary, but I think we are not in that moment right now. Another thing is my personal belief, but I will keep it.
Yeah. Then I am a little bit curious with you, Viola, because you were saying like your friends were always questioning why did you were so brave to leave your job to start engaging other youngsters to find the power to start social businesses. And my question is, where did you find the power to do that? Because that was before One Young World, no? You came to One Young World and already had started your way onto entrepreneurship. So tell us a little bit more about it.
There are some people which are people, let's say, are very focused to people behavior or people economic situation, and I was one of them. I was so involved in some kind of organization where I found youngsters were so demotivated and they were like, we are going to leave Albania, and I was terrified, scared, and I was like, who is going to work for our country if not you, us, who is going to work? And then I started, like a teenager, I can say, just to find some solutions to keep them in the country. I started with trainings, with conferences online, with career coach. I just founded the organization then, and after that, for the first time, Mohamed Yunus came in Albania, and I wasn't invited in his conference. And then I learned very in details how it works, social businesses. And I thought, okay, I love business, so why to not open a social business, so in the same time I make my dream true and in the same time I help people. So this was the first step. Also my mom and daddy were so punishing me all the time. No, you are not doing anything, you are not, your dreams are still there, you are not doing everything for this, so you have to do something. Do not listen to people, because I left my city and I went